Welcome to another edition of The Big Question with me, Ian Pelham-Turner, on ALB UK Television. Today I'm with Tony J. Selimi. This is his book, and I was just very much admiring what's written behind the book. You're an award-winning author, a coach, and internationally known as a human behaviour and cognitive expert. And you also support and work with major business leaders around the world. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
I'll put this heavy tone back down again now so that everyone can see it. Tony, tell me about why did you first start in business? What was the inspiration that got you first going?
In 2008, we experienced tremendous financial crisis around the world. And as a result, many businesses became very uncertain. But not just that, a lot of people lost their lives. There was a lot of pressure. There's so many people committed suicide, and we know what happened with Lehman Brothers and various businesses. And really, I started to think, what is it I can do with 20 years of experience, not only in business, but also in personal development, in professional development, and understanding the psychology behind business success. And what I noticed, some of the mistakes businesses are doing when the financial crisis happen, the first thing they do is they get rid of people. And people are the capital of the business. And if businesses through those times were able to unleash this human capital they already have, and all this knowledge and all this wisdom that normally disappears, imagine how far they would go as the economy comes back. So I really didn't want to be a victim anymore of circumstances of what's happening out there in the world. I wanted to really bring something together to help people, to help leaders, to help decision makers, governments, and the various sectors who are impacted by changes in external circumstances, to be able to really create miracles when the difficulty hits the business.
Do you see a parallel between 2008 and Brexit now? Do you see similar types of attitudes happening, the same types of worries happening, especially in Britain? But also, obviously, you travel the world. Yeah. You're able to sort of gauge a knowledge of how Britain is seen overseas as well. What do you think?
It's slightly different, because one of the big differences, the technology we have today, it's extremely sophisticated in comparison from 11 years ago. So therefore, that could be working in our advantage, but also in our disadvantage, because the information is available to every human being. And when we actually disseminate information, especially if it's negative, it can impact people emotionally, mentally, it can create additional stress, additional pressure, and businesses become very uncertain. And people within the business become very uncertain as a result of all the information available without really knowing the true facts.
Do you think that emotional uncertainty can actually cause all sorts of issues within a business? Because really entrepreneurs, I feel, take risks. So presumably if the emotional uncertainty is there within a business owner or an entrepreneur, he's not going to take so many risks as he would do normally. Is that really something that you can understand?
Yes, it's something I understand, but also something I help entrepreneurs and business owners not to make decisions when are emotionally charged. And I know, and I write about it in my first book, About the Wisdom, how emotions are really killer of wealth building. And if you're emotionally charged, you won't be able to have the clarity you require to be able to invest and take risks to grow the business. Because as an educator and teacher who spent almost 30 years understanding the psychology behind business and our own psychology and emotional intelligence, I realized that basically when you actually have more certainty within the self, you are more prone to making less mistakes when it comes to making decisions when the uncertainty hits. Like, for instance, now Brexit, back then it was financial crisis. And for me, in every situation, if the decision maker, the business owner or the entrepreneur has a much wider perspective of what's happening, they can make a decision to grow the business regardless of the uncertainty in the market.
I mean, I look at it at the moment, and I'm not a pessimist. I'm normally an optimist. I try to be anyway. But I see China at the moment. China is not doing as well as expected. The EU, places like Germany, are almost going into recession. America is doing all this protectionism as well that's causing trading issues right across the world. Can you see, and the people that you talk to now, can you see another global recession happening? You know, is that on people's minds at the moment? And if they are, how do you try to sort of change their perspective, their mind perspective, to think, whatever happens, I can win?
Usually what we do, we always look at the data and we look at patterns, historical patterns. And we have got historical patterns of recession happening across the world. Now, this time around, it's something that it's unprecedented in the way things are happening and evolving. If you look at America and all the different trade wars they've entered with the world, including with Europe, people are becoming very uncertain about what is the agenda behind that. And in a global economy, I think we have the ability to be able to create pathways in which not only information flows, but also business flows in a way that becomes least resistant. Because every single country nowadays, to survive, they must trade with the world. So I think the challenge in there for most of the leaders is to come together into understanding how to create fair exchange. Because the problem, what I see, it's like with some of the leaders, if we perceive that we give more and we receive less, we become extremely arrogant with that. But if we perceive that we receive less, and we give more, again, there will be some sort of mismatch in there. And this is why most of the trade work happens, because we have the perception that some countries, let's say in America, what they did with the Chinese and with Europe, we're putting more money into the EU budget, but we're not really getting back.
Sure.
And decisions like that, they shouldn't be made at that level. Because, for instance, if we were to look in all the different areas of the business and the economy, and we look at how each area contributes in another area, in another part of the world, we'll be able to see much more clarity about that there is always fair exchange. So this is why people get upset when they feel like they give more and they don't receive. Yeah. And we have to really look at what is behind that. What is the psychology of people who make those decisions? And for myself as a leadership expert and cognitive expert, I help leaders to really be able to make decisions which can actually support the growth they are seeking and creating not only win scenario for themselves, but create win-win-win-win, which means win for myself, win for you, win for our customers, and win for humanity. Because most people nowadays, especially entrepreneurs, they want something, they want to do a business which gives back and creates a greater good for mankind, because it's no longer territorial, because most people realize Earth is our only home. And whether we like it or not, we must work together to keep that home together.
If you analyze the DNA of a leader or a potential leader, what are the things that you're expecting to find? And, you know, what are the sort of the major ingredients of becoming a good entrepreneur or a good leader?
Let's start with the first, what a great leader means. Majority of people think that a great leader only supports you. I always tell people a great leader has the ability to support and challenge you in perfect measures, because they're both necessary for you to be able to lead. But also it's the way you speak. It's the way you influence people, in the way you negotiate with people, in the way you make decisions, in the way you look at the overall situation and what is your perception about that. Because what makes a bad leader is where basically you start tapping it into accusations, into raising your voice, into, almost like projecting your own value without ever considering what the other person is valuing. So a great leader for me is somebody who really, not only with their clarity, but also with their purpose, which consistently evolves, can bring people together into unity. Now, we've seen the failures at Brexit, for instance. Our leadership, our government has failed to really unite a very chopped up country, and many of the voters out there, like myself, feel politically homeless at the moment because a great leader needs to bring certainty, needs to build trust, needs to bring clarity of where we're going. So when you make a decision, you implement the decision. So when people start to see all of those things not happening to you, you actually lose the trust. And also, leaders are there to create other leaders. They're not there to just say, project their opinions or ideology on other people, but being able to create a home for others that can be nurtured and be brought up into leadership positions, and also entrepreneurs being able to mobilize people into a common vision.
Obviously, communication is key as well. So what makes a good communicator? Are they able to think outside the box a lot? Are they creative in their own right? Do they need other people, and do they have to learn sometimes how to manage other people?
Communication is key in everything we do in life. And what most people don't understand, how the communication happens within ourselves. So communication, first of all, is not only the words that we say, it's the intention behind the words, and also it's the energy and the tone of our voice. Plus, we have the entire physiology of our body that communicates in that moment when you're trying to communicate something. But the essence of our communication is through our values and how we value ourselves. A great communicator is able to listen very carefully how the other person is speaking to them and being able to pick up the kind of things that person values, and then be able to match it and create this synergy in one dialogue, even if you may have opposing views, but actually you have a great fun and you have a great time of communicating with one another.
And I noticed part of your personal communications, you have a film that at the moment, and I think it's, is it going to south of France next?
Yes, we're going to Nice Film Festival.
So tell me a little bit about the film, the aspirations behind the film, and tell me, why did you do this in the first place?
Well, the whole idea started with one of my business clients who approached me to coach their business and grow their business from $1 million a year to $1 million a month. And my client, Joel van der Molen, who's the managing director of Vandercom, which is a leading telecommunication and IT service company. And in the first 6 months, I really picked up that it wasn't the business the problem. And usually this is the whole thing. It's actually the owner of the business. If you want to experience that kind of growth, you must have that growth within the self. And on this journey, I also started working with his wife, who's also a partner. Then we realized there are so many other things that were happening in their private life that were affecting the growth of the business. So when we started working on addressing those issues, they both felt extremely inspired to be able to share the breakthroughs they were experiencing, because they thought, surely other people who are successful, they have same problems, but nobody talks about it. And communication is key, because through the process when I consult with my clients, especially if I consult couples who are business owners, they have a way of communicating with each other. And for them, it was more than 10 years. And there was a lot of silence and a lot of behaviors they're both having that they were so clear as me as an expert to observe, but to each other, they couldn't understand what those meant to them. So Living My Illusion was born as a co-creative project to be able to share with the world, when we don't speak our inner truth, the impact that has that. Loneliness, because when we don't speak our truth, we can't really grow our business, because your body will show that. You end up into drinking a lot after work, you end up being stressed, you end up being working late hours, but actually not being very productive. And you end up creating disempowered behaviors that, until somebody like myself comes in and actually reflects back, you keep doing it. So when we actually created the documentary series, we based it on a lot of my clients who came forward that they wanted to share that with the world. Because silence communicates quite a lot. Our behaviors communicate a lot. Our beliefs and the way we speak, communicate, do things, interact with people, the way we phone people, the way we respond when a customer challenges us. Those are all the things that are happening in a business, but also in our private life. So this is when Joel and Timia came about, and when we started on this project, we really wanted to address the silence and the toxic effect of silence, of not being able to communicate our inner truth. the loneliness that people experience in relationship, but also in business. And also what happens to a leader when they go through personal challenges that are afraid to come up. So ever since we've gone around the world, we won the Hollywood award, then we won Los Angeles, then New York, and now we've been nominated for 4 awards at the Nice International Film Festival. We won the Amsterdam International Film Festival because the topics that we discuss, and actually the magic, Ian, is we capturing all life. So there's no behind the story things. It's literally real people, successful people who become vulnerable into sharing what's happening to them through life.
Do you think entrepreneurs can become lonely? Can they cut off sometimes from the real world and really create a world that they want to be in, and so by that they're leaving the real world at the same time?
Yes, I mean, #loneliness, the virus of modern age, is based on that, Ian. It's based on my own loneliness as an entrepreneur. And many people out there, when things happen in their life and they see no way out, they pursue the route of entrepreneurship. And unless you are lucky and have a lot of wealth behind you, most entrepreneurs become lonely because they're struggling to try to build their business, their idea, the business plan, the customer base, and the technology behind that, and growing their businesses or scaling their business. So, and most of us as entrepreneurs, we spend a lot of time behind the desk at home, wherever we are, trying to build our business with a laptop until we get the resources to be able to say, I'm going to hire somebody who's doing my branding, or I'm going to hire somebody who's going to do my PA, or whatever it might be that we need in a business. So to start with, it can be extremely, extremely lonely journey. And a lot of people give up.
So obviously we're on an ALB UK television and Albanian channel as well. So obviously we are talking to an inbound immigrant population at the same time. And I know you're from an Albanian background yourself as well. So what would you advise communities coming into Britain wanting to set up businesses, because they then have the added problem, presumably, of ingratiating themselves with the community in the first place?
I will give you a few pointers in what helped me. To start with, I love Britain. And the reason I love Britain, it's a country where you can exercise your freedom and being able to find your own identity and being able to grow as a human being, and then being able to make a bigger difference in the world. So it gives you this freedom that no other country for me has ever given me. So Britain has become my own home. And for immigrants who are considering to come into Britain, or potentially people who are in there, I have 5 things I would love to share. Number 1 is wherever you go in the world, make it your home. Make the decision in your head that if you're going to come to Britain, Britain becomes your home. And when something becomes your home, you start to really adopt the culture. You start to adopt the way of people, the way they think. So actually you start to almost become like a chameleon, be a chameleon. Because this is the advice that my grandfather and my mother gave me when they saved my life from a civil war. If you're going to go into another country, you are a guest. And adopt their culture. So you really start growing your mindset, because people from different cultures have different values, different beliefs. But we live in a very free society. We live in a democratic society where people can be themselves, no matter what that is. So the second part is really becoming a chameleon and started really learning and integrating within the British culture, because it's extremely rich. And learn about it. I would say to people, the third one is meet a lot of British people. And get to know their lives, get to know what it means to them. Thirdly, I would say for sure there's an access to education. England, I love England because you have so many different options for you to educate yourself. Personally, I worked very hard and I paid for my private education. But even if you don't have money, there's avenues where you can go educate yourself. And if you don't want to pursue university, you can actually start a business. So this is how wonderful Britain is, because it's very easy. The infrastructure for you to become an entrepreneur, it's easy. You go to company's house, you set up your company, and then you start building things. And even if you don't know it, On that process, you have networking environments where you can meet people who, even if you ask them a question like this interview, they will give you a few pointers. And then you start meeting other people. And lastly, I would say is make an impact, make a difference. No matter who you are, when you come to Britain, if you are a hardworking person and you really have a genuine desire to serve people, you will succeed.
Do you think Albanians make good business people?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. It's something that I think, having learned about my history as Albanian people, when we look back, I look at my parents, you know, they were restaurateurs and they earned a lot of money working and in my family, everybody worked. You know, I started working, making money at the age of 6. So for me, making money, it's easy. And Albanian people, wherever they go around the world, they have their own businesses. They're very good business people. They're great traders. They're great restaurateurs. We have great architects. You have people like myself who are doing, you know, this incredible work around the world. You have like Rita Ora, musicians. We have Dua Lipa. You have Perpami Rama, who is an architect in this country. And I mean, I've met some of the top cooks around the world who work in the top Michelin restaurants who are Albanians. And for me, I'm extremely proud to say I'm British Albanian because I love both of those things and integrating those things, and not really to say I'm one or the other. Most of all, I'm a human being, which means the world is my home. But I have no problem to bring about my heritage, my values, because the values that Albanian people are extremely peaceful society. Albanian people have never gone to war. They've been always occupied, but they themselves, they protected so many people. And we have a very, very rich tradition. And most of all, every Albanian person, in their own family environment, they get nurtured to become entrepreneurial.
So what's the Tony J. Selimi focus for the future? You know, what do you see yourself on the horizon? You know, where do you want to be over the course of the next year personally?
Over the course of next year, I'm doing a lot of projects, but the next thing is I'm in the middle of writing my third book called A Path to Excellence, which is specifically designed for leaders and the challenges leaders have in the 21st century and how they can become extremely mindful to be able to make a bigger impact in the world. The second part is we're actually doing further episodes of Living My Illusion documentary. So in the first season, we want to focus on the issues that men entrepreneurs have. And then in the other part, we want to focus on the female issues and then balance the energies because in every human being, we have those masculine and feminine energies. And when we understand that in ourselves, then we actually don't have issues with gender inequalities, sexual inequalities, racial, creed, and all of that. So you become very peaceful in yourself. And the next one is basically going around the world, supporting more leaders and business owners and coach them and mentor them and consulting. And I've got a very unique 5-day program, which I teach in luxury places. Specifically, it's designed for 6 to 9-figure entrepreneurs, where I focus them for 5 days and I create an incredible vision for their life, for their business, and being able to monetize their wisdom and being able to create products and services which are cosmoethical, meaning that future generation, they don't have to spend time to get rid of them. So in a way, creating this sustainability and support the vision to really bring this work and my methodology to transform, change, and inspire the lives of 1 billion people.
From a cognitive point of view, which makes better business people, men or women?
I would say I wouldn't put gender in there because I've met some incredible women who actually are great at business, but also I've seen some incredible men that are great at business. For me personally, if somebody comes to me as a woman and they want to build a business, I will look into awakening their masculine side of them. Because sometimes women have a problem with having some of the traits that we perceive are only masculine. And vice versa, I have entrepreneurs who are great leaders, who are extremely, I would say, overly masculine and arrogant. And their feminine nature it's really sitting down. So for me, it's about the person. It's about what you value. It's about what your credibility is. It's about what your vision is. It's about what is that you want to bring into this world. What is the impact you want to make? Because in our hearts, Ian, in our soul, I think every human being has a dream that they want to bring about. Usually they don't know how. And this is where I come into the picture.
They always say in business that it's the first 15 seconds that counts on whether you're likable or not.
Yeah.
What type of ideas do you suggest to people to make someone likable in that first 15 seconds?
First of all, be yourself. Never try to put any form of mask, because our intelligence knows how to read you instantly without us even making any subjection, even without even saying anything. Because the first communication that we have, it's what I called in #loneliness, human energy field. Meaning we as a vibrational being, as an energy being, our entire body radiates. And whether we know it or not, consciously or unconsciously, straight away we know whether we can trust this person. So just be yourself and work with yourself to be able to communicate authentically with a person. So if you are somebody who loves to joke, crack a joke. If you're somebody who is extremely wise, then say something wise about it. If you're somebody who makes a big impact, they want to have a social impact in the world, say something like that. So start a conversation with something which is valuable to you and to the person you want to communicate.
Well, Tony, almost time is up for today again. It's been wonderful talking to you. Again, just explain to us, how can people get in contact with you?
They can connect and follow me by going to my website, tonyselimi.com, TonySelimi.com, and they can find all information about
And they
me.
can find how to purchase your books and,
Yes.
and so forth through that.
Yes.
Tony, thank you so much for your time today. As always, you've been a very valuable guest to us. So this is from me, Ian Penham-Turner, from ALB UK Television, from The Big Question, saying thank you so much to Tony J. Selimi, and goodbye for now.